Roman Reigns' attacker is revealed, sort of, this week on television. A WWE legend returns to face Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam, but it's not the one that the storyline had been building to, and match-by-match predictions for every card at SummerSlam. That's all upcoming this week on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. Welcome back to another edition of the 5-Star Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, coming to you solo. Justin Lowry unavailable this week, but we will get his predictions for SummerSlam as this show progresses. It is the second biggest event of the WWE calendar. It's upcoming in just a little more than 48 hours this Sunday in Toronto. And we'll get into each match, give our predictions, as well as some of the build to SummerSlam. Does it feel like it's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year for WWE, and much more? But I wanted to start by recapping some notable things that happened on Raw and SmackDown leading up to this big extravaganza. And we have to start with the Roman Reigns storyline because it's a story that I think has intrigued a lot of people, for better or for worse. It's very Attitude Era-esque, if you will, in terms of the whodunit. And remember, they've done things like this with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who attacked him when he was injured. This story, this type of storyline has been done before, but I like intrigue. I like mystery. So while maybe it hasn't been presented that good, and let's be honest, the first segment on SmackDown involving like the backstage equipment falling and nearly crushing Roman, that was done pretty horribly. But the general idea of a mysterious attacker for Roman Reigns storyline, I'm behind that because I want to see, well, who's it going to be? Word came out online that it was supposed to be Daniel Bryan. We still don't know 100% if that's correct, but it looks like it might be heading that route. First, on Raw, we got another attack of Roman that just narrowly missed, severe damage to the big dog, as he was confronted by Samoa Joe in the parking lot. And Samoa Joe came out at the beginning of Raw and said, hey, I'm innocent. You know, I want an apology for Roman. So Joe went to find Roman to get that apology. And as they were sort of going back and forth verbally, we saw a car come and nearly hit Roman. He ducked into the vehicle. Now, if you look here, there's no sign of Roman at all. So, again, production-wise, this hasn't been terrific by any means. That being said, the point got across. Okay, someone's trying to kill Roman Reigns. Almost hit him with a car. Who was it? We know it's not Samoa Joe, which I don't think anyone really thought it was all along. But nonetheless, that person drives off. And WWE has like sort of carefully placed some clues and hints and maybe some red herrings in the video if you really like break it down. Same with the one on SmackDown. So this is leading to, okay, well, what's going to happen next? Is this going to lead to a match at SummerSlam for Roman, who attacked him? All of a sudden, you have the opportunity to really push a superstar that could use the boost for a storyline, or you could just use an established guy and sort of swerve the fans a little bit with just how you set up this feud. So that happened on Raw, which just led to more questions on SmackDown. Roman does a sit-down. He says, I'm going to get to the bottom of it by the end of the show. So at the very end of the show, there's a tag team match, Daniel Bryan and Rowan against the New Day. It ends in a DQ finish. Rowan and Daniel Bryan are standing tall in the ring as they beat down the tag team champs. But then it goes backstage to Roman Reigns, and he goes and confronts Buddy Murphy, which was a little surprising. I believe he was one of the people that was like seen backstage during the incidents, however, so it made sense storyline-wise. And Roman beats up Buddy and says, who did this? Who did this? Well, Buddy Murphy says it's Eric Rowan. So all of a sudden, we now hear that Eric Rowan is involved, which leads you to believe that it's really Daniel Bryan. But we didn't get a true answer at the end of SmackDown. I would say it's somewhat of a cliffhanger in that we have a name, but we don't have all of the pieces to the puzzle. So people immediately think, okay, well, what does this mean for SummerSlam? Is Roman going to be wrestling at SummerSlam? Would he go against Daniel Bryan? Would he go against Eric Rowan? Would he go against Buddy Murphy? Some people thought he might team up with Samoa Joe to go against Daniel Bryan and Rowan. I don't think as of this time, which is Friday around noon, that there's been any decision made on that, or at least nothing publicly announced. So I'm under the impression that Roman will not be competing at SummerSlam, but they'll probably further the storyline at SummerSlam, if that makes sense. Maybe do a backstage segment with him. Something to keep it in the forefront of WWE fans' minds. But I think avoiding a match, well, that's probably okay. Putting him in with Buddy Murphy, while it's theoretically a big opportunity for Buddy, fans aren't going to care. They don't know anything about him. He's really just an afterthought in the storyline. So if you want Buddy to have a nice debut, that's not the way to do it. Roman would just win probably in a couple of minutes. So I don't want that match. And then do you have him and Samoa Joe team up? That's an interesting thought, but then what do you do with Samoa Joe going forward? Do you have him as a face? Which I think, that's probably not his, doesn't meet his skill set necessarily. He's much better as a heel. So we'll see what happens, but I do like the idea that they're doing something different, and now this gives fans a reason to tune in to the next episode, whether it be to tune into SummerSlam, or to tune into Monday Night Raw or SmackDown to find out, okay, what happens next? Do we find out who did this, or are they still string it out another week, a couple more weeks, until there's a big reveal at some point? Speaking of big reveals, we had that to close out Monday on Raw. So there has been speculation that Dolph Ziggler was going to go against someone at SummerSlam that was not going to be The Miz, which was his opponent that was announced about a week ago, and was not going to be Shawn Michaels, who was super kicked by Dolph Ziggler. They got physical on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago. And I said this probably isn't a big enough match for Shawn Michaels to come out of retirement, if you will, even though he did wrestle in Saudi Arabia in that tag team match. So there were some rumblings that it would be Goldberg, because Ziggler has thrown out the name Goldberg disparagingly a few times in his promos, just as kind of a throwaway. It hasn't been a focal point, so they were kind of sly about sneaking that in there. But we find out on Monday Night Raw, it's The Miz and Dolph Ziggler. They're going to have their contract signing. Well, I knew something was fishy when this was going to be the main event, because why are The Miz and Dolph Ziggler main eventing Raw with a contract signing for what's really an insignificant match at SummerSlam? But they said, hey, Shawn Michaels is going to be there. So you think, logically, the person who is physically involved with Dolph Ziggler, the person who already has that built-in storyline, plus the history of Dolph being compared to Shawn Michaels for the past decade, two great workers, it made sense if Shawn Michaels was willing to do it. But that was just a red herring as well. That was a swerve, because we found out it's not Miz and it's not Shawn Michaels, it's Goldberg. So Goldberg comes out, signs the contract. Basically, here's how I look at it. This is going to be a squash match at SummerSlam. Dolph Ziggler, who Justin has said it a million times, he's not a real credible threat. He's a guy who's perfectly fine losing matches. He's going to lose to Goldberg, and I think he's going to lose in a couple of minutes, because Goldberg's probably doing this match, and they're allowing him to have this match for redemption, because his match against The Undertaker was nothing short of a disaster. They almost immediately got Undertaker back involved in a match where he looked motivated, he looked rejuvenated. He had a really good showing in a tag team match about a month ago, and now they want to do the same for Goldberg, to get that bad taste out of his mouth. I don't think that putting him in a 5, 8, 10-minute match is going to help him, because he will be very susceptible to being exposed again. I think he comes out, spear, jackhammer, that's it. Maybe Ziggler hits him with a zigzag right off the bat, but Goldberg kind of kicks out. But I don't think we're going to see more than about 3 or 4 moves in this match. And Goldberg wins pretty easily. So, yeah, you get a name of Goldberg. That might bring in some fans to the show. It makes it feel more like a big-time event if you have a legend like Goldberg wrestling. But ultimately, I think that it's kind of a disappointing reveal, because yeah, we get Goldberg, but like a lot of people have soured on Goldberg. It doesn't do anything for Dolph Ziggler. He's in all likelihood going to be made to look a fool. So why do you do that with Dolph? You're going to get about a 2-minute match. It's going to have very little action in it. But Shawn Michaels That would be an intriguing option. Does Shawn Michaels still have what it takes to go against Ziggler? I would have been very interested in that, although I do fully support Shawn Michaels like staying retired if that's his decision. I wish he never would have wrestled in Saudi Arabia. So I get that part because no one really stays retired. Shawn Michaels has done a much better job than most. So I get if he's not willing and interested in wrestling again, don't throw him in there for a match against Dolph Ziggler, which is really meaningless. But the way they built the storyline up, it almost feels disappointing that it is Goldberg. And I know that's not the reaction they want, but that's how I feel after really seeing this story unfold. You know, Miz and Dolph, you would have gotten probably a decent match. But Michaels and Dolph, that would have been something that everyone would, be glued to the television screens for. Goldberg and Ziggler, I think most smart fans just know, we're going to get 2 minutes out of this. Goldberg's entrance is going to take longer than the match. So it's going to be much like just about any other Goldberg match that we've seen, really for the most part in his career, but especially during his most recent run in WWE. Also want to touch on new tag team champs on Raw. No, not the men's tag team championships held by Anderson and Gallows, but the women's tag team titles finally became at least somewhat relevant once again for the first time since basically WrestleMania. New champs, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross. So it makes sense because there's no doubt this story is building towards Alexa against Nikki. Now, I originally thought that they would sort of implode by now and have a match at SummerSlam. They wanted to go with more of a, slow burn, long-term booking, if you will, in this. So they won the tag team championships. It was, I would say, sort of ironic, not iconic, but ironic, that the tag team champions, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, were the first team eliminated. So, one, you could say, okay, well, that created some suspense because we knew we were going to get tag team champs after they were eliminated. And I think it went 2 more segments, so you want to stick around. We know we're getting new champs. In theory, that's something exciting. But it kind of just sums up the entire title run for Billie Kay and Peyton Royce as a joke. And it's not their fault. I mean, they're sort of comic relief in the first place. They're not at this point very serious. I like the role that they're in, but the tag team championships were made to look a joke. They were made to look a joke. So now we have champs that, okay, they're not really a tag team. They are right now for the time being. I don't know. We all know that in the end, I think it's going to lead to them losing and Alexa turning on Nikki. If it's anything other than that, I'll be pretty surprised. But how long do they have the titles? Who do they go against? Do they ultimately end up giving it to the Kabuki Warriors, who I think are really the team that deserves to have it? We'll wait and see. But at least they utilize the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, I thought immediately, okay, we have to get a rematch, right? Billie Kay and Peyton Royce going against Alexa and Nikki. Maybe that will be announced for SummerSlam. That would be one of the matches I think that they could potentially add, because right now they only have 10 matches, which is a little bit less than some of their other big pay-per-views. So, wouldn't be surprised if we get that. But, again, this is a tag team title, tag team championships being used to basically further a storyline that's going to lead to a singles match. Nonetheless, final thing I want to touch on for Raw, I thought it was terrific again, but it's about the 4th or 5th time I've said that. Andrade and Rey Mysterio, they go at it. Just a terrific battle. I think that this feud, it's just been misused because these matches could have been so much more. Give these guys a real storyline building up to a significant pay-per-view match, then let them tear the house down for 15 minutes. But it always feels like, oh, well, that's a great TV match, but that's it. These guys deserve better, and Rey has been, when healthy since he's returned, terrific. He's had, some great matches. He's looked like he's about 10 years younger than he actually is. Andrade needs to get matches like this, needs to get storylines, and needs to get victories, which he did on Raw. So I like that they give these guys the time to go out and shine, and I feel like Raw the last couple weeks has been using the mid-carders to go out and put on some really good in-ring displays. But ultimately, I would have liked to have seen it mean more. Why not have these guys in a storyline that builds to a match at SummerSlam? Doesn't look like they're going to go that direction. Now, they could always throw together a rematch, but with no promotion at this point, still won't have the same effect. Nonetheless, that's the bright spot for Raw. That match was just outstanding. And anytime you can watch those two go at it, you're always in for a treat. Let's jump over to SmackDown, and really we talked about one of the big things, which was the reveal with the Roman Reigns and Buddy Murphy saying it was Rowan. That was the close to SmackDown, which is a really weird way to close a go-home show to SummerSlam. Basically, focusing on a storyline that doesn't seem like it's even going to lead to a match at SummerSlam. Now, again, wait and see. They could add something along those lines. But in kind of a weird way for the send-home show. One thing that kicked off the show that I thought was pretty good was Trish and Charlotte. Now, they're going to be squaring off at SummerSlam in Trish's hometown of Toronto. I think that's one reason why they really wanted to get her involved is because it's in Toronto. They also wanted to make sure that Charlotte was used. She's sort of been on the back burner since, I would say, basically like the end of May. Now, she is probably going to get the victory over Trish here, but I think that this could be a fun matchup, and I know that the fans are really going to be into it. My concern is, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, this match probably will be a bigger deal or presented as a bigger deal than both the Raw and SmackDown women's title matches, especially the SmackDown women's title match between Bayley and Ember Moon. There's not a whole lot of steam behind that one. Natty and Becky Lynch is a little bit bigger because I think they consider Becky a bigger star. And they've really done a little bit more work with Natty to kind of show a new side of her. So they've put some effort into building that. But ultimately, Charlotte still seems like the biggest star amongst the women in the eyes of Vince McMahon. And I can't say that I blame him. I probably don't view her as the biggest deal in WWE in terms of the women, but he does, and she certainly delivers in the ring. So she's going to get a match against Trish Stratus, I should say. And some of the big news that came out is Trish tweeted that this is the final time she's stepping in the ring. So, it's not officially announced, but it looks like it might be her retirement match. We'll see. I don't think she's done at this point. She's wrestled a couple times over the last year plus, and I think that there's more that they want to do. I know that certainly Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, those are people that, maybe could go against Trish Stratus. We don't even know what's happening with Sasha, but she could very easily come back at SummerSlam. And Alexa Bliss and Trish, I know that was supposed to happen before, and it never really was able to because of injuries to Alexa. So we'll see how it all plays out, but it does feel like that match is being made to be a bigger deal than the women's title matches, which, I have some concerns about. So with Raw and SmackDown in the rearview mirror, full steam ahead to SummerSlam, let's take a look at some of the biggest matches. And we will begin with the Universal title match. It is champion Brock Lesnar. Yes, it does hurt me to say that, against Seth Rollins. And the story basically the last 2 weeks is that Rollins can't win this match. He's just overmatched by Brock Lesnar, who's beaten him into oblivion 2 consecutive weeks. So this has to be a real concern for WWE, because Seth Rollins seems becoming more and more unpopular each and every week. And some of it is his own doing with what he's done on social media. I understand that. But I think more of it's been how he's been booked and how this company always has to present the babyface as an underdog against the authority, against insurmountable odds. Vince and company, I don't want to put it all on Vince, but it feels like it is on him. They have Lesnar beat down Rollins the last couple of weeks, thinking that's going to get the fans behind Seth. It hasn't at all. And then Seth cuts I'll be at SummerSlam, I'm going to win. It's not working. Fans aren't behind him. Seth Rollins doesn't need to get over by being some sympathetic figure that's beaten down and an underdog against the odds. He needs to get over more by doing what he does best, which is go in there and have a killer 20-minute match. That's why the fans got behind him about a year ago, leading into WrestleMania 34, him winning the title. It was because, actually, was it WrestleMania 35? It's bad that I can't even remember. I was even at it. Nonetheless, it led to Rollins winning the championship because the fans naturally rallied behind him because he was going out there, stealing the show, match of the night, each and every night. They've gone away from that. They've changed him. He's no longer like the machine in the ring. It's Seth Rollins, the baby face and the boyfriend and the jokester. Like, it's not working, and it could blow up in their face on Sunday. Who knows if the fans are going to cheer for Brock Lesnar? He's very unpopular as well for obvious reasons, but it almost seems like fans will do that just to show Vince and company, hey, we're not digging what you're doing with Seth Rollins, so we're going to cheer for the bad guy. And I do expect that to happen. That said, I am very hopeful, maybe not optimistic, but I am hoping Seth Rollins wins. He's my pick. I'm sort of going against better judgment here, but I'm picking Seth Rollins, as is Justin Lowry. And I think that they've told the story that Seth can't win this match. Well, let's watch him do it now. So if Seth does win this, please be the end of this storyline. I don't want to see any more. Brock Lesnar just cannot be champion. It just kills me inside every time that he is, to have a guy that doesn't show up to TV tapings on a regular basis, doesn't even show up to the majority of pay-per-views throughout the year. Get the title off of him. If you want to use Brock Lesnar going forward, fine, but don't put him in title contention. He's a part-timer, and that really should never be a consideration. The other title match I'm very excited about, that is Kofi Kingston defending against Randy Orton. And I think for all the criticism for WWE storylines and for building the SummerSlam, or the lack of build more specifically, they've done a good job with this one. Because they've played up the history, and they put together some video packages the last couple weeks that I thought have been terrific. Kofi, Randy, real life animosity about 10 years ago. Who knows if they still feel that way, but they've included that in this storyline. They've shown visual evidence of it. They've had both men speak to it. I'm loving it. Randy Orton is a guy that's still in his prime. He still gets a great reaction. Heel or face, he could do both. I think he's always been better as a heel. And Kofi's, I think, done a good job as champion. I've seen people say, like, oh, Kofi, he struggled as champion. I don't really agree with that. I think he's done a nice job. I always thought, though, when he won at WrestleMania, this would be, like, the end of the run. Like, there's no way he's going to make it past SummerSlam. He might hold it to SummerSlam, which he has. He's not going to make it past. But is Randy Orton the guy that takes it? If Randy does, I think it's a transitional championship reign for him. And then maybe you look at Roman Reigns, or potentially Kevin Owens, but probably Roman Reigns as the guy who takes it from Randy Orton. So I could see that happening. I could see them giving it to Randy just for someone else when SmackDown moves to Fox to take it from him. But I look at it as they're going to have Kofi keep it until there's someone ready to take it from him that will be like the face of SmackDown as it goes to Fox. I don't think that'll be Randy Orton. So I'd rather just, instead of going A to B to C, go A to C directly, if that makes any sense, which means that I want Kofi, and I expect Kofi to keep the championship at SummerSlam. And my cohort, Justin Lowry, agrees. On to another pretty big match, although, again, you can kind of look at it like it's not as big as it probably should be, not as big as it would have been had it been presented about 6 months ago, and that is Becky Lynch against Natalya. I personally am not really into this storyline because Natalya was so insignificant, so irrelevant. You can't make me interested all of a sudden. It seems like it's just thrown together. Do better. Build her up to this. Give her 2 or 3 months of successful, matches. Have her become a credible threat, and then become a challenger. Not like, oh, she won a match, now she's a challenger, we're supposed to believe her. Oh, now she's also sort of a heel, even though Becky's more of a heel in this story. Okay, it's in Toronto. I get that Canada, Natalya being a heart, it makes sense. But couldn't they have thought of that in, like, June? And used June and July to build up Natalya instead of basically building her up about 3 weeks ago and kind of, just fast-tracking this. I think Becky retains. Natalya's not going to be the one that takes the title from her. Although Becky at this point, she's not an unstoppable force seemingly. She's lost a lot of momentum. But I'm going with Becky Lynch, as is Justin Lowry. Now let's focus on the SmackDown Women's title. Again, I don't like the build, but I do like the matchup. and that's Bayley against Ember Moon. I think this one could be an under-the-radar terrific match if they give them the opportunity. Now, the question is, what do the fans do? If the fans are confused, it'll often hurt a match. So are they going to cheer for Bayley? Are they going to cheer for Ember? Are they going to kind of go back and forth on it? I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Although I think Ember will get a little bit more cheers than Bayley. They've sort of flashed Bayley being a little bit heelish in his storyline with an attack of Ember after a tag team match. So I'm looking forward to the match itself. Does it make sense in storyline purposes? Not really. Ember, again, much like Natalya, she wasn't doing a heck of a lot, and all of a sudden, oh, she's challenging now. So we have to make her seem important and put her on TV. Remember, she was like losing to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville not too long ago. So because of that, because she was just hastily thrown in as a contender, I think it stays with Bayley. She retains the title, and Justin Lowry agrees. We are on the same page for all 4 of the matches so far. Now let's go away from the titles. Let's talk about the match that I mentioned before, Goldberg and Ziggler. I've already given the build to this one, so I won't spend too much time. Goldberg wins this one. I have almost no doubt. I'm about 98% confident in this one. The only way that Dolph Ziggler wins is if there's some sort of outside interference that would then set the stage for Goldberg against someone else. I don't see that happening. I know that they've sort of teased Matt Riddle with Goldberg, Matt Riddle with Brock Lesnar. Could it happen? Yes. I don't think so, though. I think Goldberg comes back just to get this squash victory, get that bad taste out of his mouth. He, I guess, walks away as the winner, and then we don't know. Maybe we won't see Goldberg after that. Maybe that'll be it. But nonetheless, I don't anticipate a new storyline developing, which is really the inevitability if there is a run-in that costs Goldberg the match. So I'm going with Goldberg, and Justin agrees. A match that's probably hasn't been given the significance that it should be given the circumstances, which were just announced this week, Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon. So basically the way they presented it, and again, we've seen this kind of loophole so many times in WWE that it doesn't carry as much weight as it should. But basically, loser leave town, Kevin Owens, Shane McMahon. So here's the thing. Kevin Owens isn't leaving WWE in reality. We know that. Did they do a storyline where he loses and then, he comes back with some dubious circumstances? Maybe. But could Shane McMahon leave WWE? Yes. We've seen him leave for years and years before he came back. What was it, about 3 years ago now at this point? I think that there's a real chance that this could be the end of Shane. Do I think it will be? No, but there's certainly that possibility. Kevin Owens wins this match, Shane McMahon goes away and actually really does stay away for at least the time being, because we know Kevin Owens is going to be wrestling a match within the next month. He's not injured as far as we know. He's not going anywhere. Vince is, I don't think, going to get rid of anyone. And certainly with, Owens being in a big match, that doesn't indicate to me that, his contract's up. I think we would have heard about that. So Kevin Owens is going to continue wrestling. If that's the case, then why not have him beat Shane McMahon, give everyone what they want? So I'm going with Kevin Owens winning this one, and Justin Lowry agrees. A match that could steal the show is AJ Styles and Ricochet. Yes, we've seen them wrestle before. They will do battle this time over the United States Championship. I'm going with AJ to retain just because this title's changed hands so many times, and I think they want to build up the OC, terrible name, but pretty formidable group. So AJ Styles retains the title. Justin Lowry agrees. But regardless of who wins that one, they give it time and they let them have a knockdown, drag-out match. It could be match of the night. Probably would be the most likely pick for the best match. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, makes his debut of sorts. He goes against Finn Balor. This one's easy. Probably the easiest one outside of Goldberg Ziggler. It's going to be Bray Wyatt. You have to give him a victory in his first match in this new character. Finn's been an afterthought anyway, so I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Finn afterwards. Bray Wyatt gets the victory. Charlotte Trish Stratus, I mentioned already, I think that Trish Stratus is just there to put over Charlotte. Could be Trish's last match. Maybe that adds a little bit of intrigue because does she go out a winner? I don't think so. Charlotte, the young up-and-coming, well, I don't even want to say up-and-coming, the established but in her prime superstar, gets the victory over Trish. Justin agrees with that, as did he with the prior match with Bray Wyatt winning and with AJ Styles retaining. So we are on the exact same page. 9 of 9, the last match, the Cruiserweight title. Do we agree on this one? It is Drew Gulak defending against Oney Lorcan. I go with champion Drew Gulak. So Justin, does he make the same pick? He does. Drew Gulak is his pick. We are 10 of 10 on the same page. We agree on every single match. So it's not a matter of who will be more correct. It'll be a matter of if we collectively did a good job or if we missed the mark with our picks. That's going to do it for this week. Let's take a look at the predictions right here. You can see everyone the same between myself and Justin. 10 out of 10 would be nice. I'm not expecting it. I think we'll get a couple of surprising outcomes, but I think a decent amount of these picks I have a good level of confidence in. Overall, SummerSlam, does it feel like the biggest show of the summer? Not really, but I like that they only have 10 matches. I think they're going to give ample time to the superstars to go out and have a good show. And we'll see what comes from it. Again, there's the Roman Reigns storyline going forward, and a lot more that they could potentially build to. I mentioned the possibility of having Seth Rollins as the champion again. If that happens, maybe you look at who's going to be the next contender. That might be determined at SummerSlam. Does anyone interrupt the Goldberg match? I don't think so, but it could happen. So there's some intrigue heading into the show. And usually when you give great superstars an opportunity to go out there and wrestle lengthy matches, they do deliver. So I'm looking forward to SummerSlam. We'll be doing some live tweeting of it. If you want to follow along on Twitter, 5-Star Pod Wrestle. You could also follow us on Instagram, 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you find out about each and every new episode. That's going to do it for this week. We'll be back next week as Justin and I review our SummerSlam predictions and talk about the fallout from the biggest spectacle of the summer. But that's going to do it for now. We'll catch you next week here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.